Hey, so Dave, thanks for joining me. How about you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dave Starling. I'm the CTO of Seenit. Seenit provides a collaborative video platform for enterprises, and that's anyone from large banks who want to use it for internal comms to digital content producers like the BBC who want to reach out to their own communities to get very solid footage from their communities to get answers around things that matter to them.
Cool. Okay. So basically, yeah, people kind of crowdsource video type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's directed. So rather than just say, send us your stuff, we actually tell them, we give them very descriptive directorial cues to make sure we get the content that the producers want.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I should probably explain. I'm Matthew Revell. I work at Couchbase, and I'm a developer advocate there. And Dave, you're one of our Couchbase developer experts. So tell me a bit about what that means and why it's something that might be interesting to other people.
Sure. So the Couchbase Developer Expert and the champions as well are people who have been selected from the community for their contributions to the Couchbase community. On the expert side, it usually means running a large-scale Couchbase system as an actual live app. That might be in the mobile space or it might be on the server space. But it also means running things like meetups, speaking at events. I think I've talked at a number of different Couchbase events now. So it's a good setting for sort of the future of the Couchbase community. There are lots of other similar setups elsewhere. And so I think this is going to work pretty well for Couchbase to sort of find out in their community who the people who can be recommended as sort of helpful advocates.
Cool. And if you do know people who, if you're watching this, you know someone who you think should be one of our Couchbase developer experts or a community champion, which is, you don't necessarily have to have been running Couchbase in production. You don't necessarily have to have huge in-depth expertise with Couchbase, but you're still someone who makes a contribution to the community. Then you can always email us community@couchbase.com to nominate people. Okay, so with you being a Couchbase developer expert, that sounds like you've got some expertise in running Couchbase. So tell us what you do with Couchbase at Seenit.
Yeah, so at Seenit we use Couchbase on both the mobile and the server side. So primarily on the server side is where the heavy work goes. That's where the heavy lifting is right now. We use it to store everything except our binary objects. So videos, photos, anything like that, we store on Google Cloud Storage. But then everything else, all the metadata around those videos and photos gets stored in Couchbase. So that's everything from the user profiles of the people who have submitted the content, linked to their Facebook profiles, getting demographic data that might be interesting for the community producers, all the way through to histogram and histogram analysis on the videos themselves, metadata about the videos, so that when we get the ability to query that data, we can say, I want a video that has a large proportion of blue in it. So we can then do some really interesting things with querying histogram data based on how it sits, because ultimately all a histogram is an array of small integers, really. So it's easy for us to query. And then we also use very heavily a lot of MapReduce views. So those are used primarily for aggregate reporting data, how many uploads we've received per hour, day, month and year, how many hours of footage we've received. And that's where the MapReduce queries really help, because it's they're fast to report on, but we don't have to worry about the insert delays of a typical, say, MySQL index being a cause of some slow inserts.
Okay, and So then on the application side of things, you're sort of mostly in Python. Am I right?
Yeah, so we did originally have some Node, but we've migrated everything over to Python now. So one of the biggest things that we've done recently is migrate over from the 1.x to the 2.0 SDK for Python. It's not a huge burdensome task. It doesn't require massive amounts of going through your code and changing loads of things. And in fact, the way we've done it anyway is all of our Python models were inheriting from a core Couchbase object. So that was like an abstraction layer for us. So that we only really had to change everything in one place. And in Python, that's mostly around how you connect to a bucket. So rather than creating a Couchbase connection object in Python 1.0 SDK, you now create a bucket instance. But that bucket instance is really just there to create the connection. We'll talk about Nickel later, I think, but it doesn't really matter if you connect to a single bucket because you can still query Nickel across buckets.
Okay, great. So yeah, let's move on to that now. So I know you've been playing around with Couchbase 4.0, and we're getting close-ish to release of Couchbase 4.0. So what is it in 4.0 that's interesting to you? What can you imagine using at Seenit?
So as I mentioned, we use a lot of the MapReduce views to gather data, and we've really hit the limit on what we can do with those. We've hit the limit on, for example, in order to order your MapReduce views, the data you get back, it's really an entirely new view that you then have to develop because the ordering is done based on the output of the index from that view. So, and it really means that you're sort of tied to developing lots and lots of different views for any ad hoc querying you do. And you run into not necessarily complexity around the development of them, but certainly the management of them in terms of deploying them to new machines and just making sure that when you're developing or updating existing views that you push the right ones and promote them to production in the right way. So from a managerial operations perspective, they get quite cumbersome. And there are performance limits on how many views you can have realistically as well, because within a group of views, when you update one, they all update within that group. So Nickel is going to open up basically all of the ad hoc querying that we want to do. So one of the key areas that a lot of our clients want to do is understand the types of communities that they're building. And that's everything from gender, age, demographics to the type of devices that they're using. Are we heavily Android or iOS biased? The types of content they're getting. And Nickel really allows us then to drill down much quicker than we will be able to do with a MapReduce view. It's much more like a traditional MySQL. I'm just going to build a where clause based on the filters that have been passed to me from the front end. So that's certainly one aspect. And then the ability to just order that arbitrarily is great as well. But there's also some really interesting things around nesting and unnesting of documents that is going to be quite powerful for us. So as you will well know from your many talks on modeling documents within Couchbase, there are really two choices that you have with regards to subdocuments. You either store the entire subdocument in your parent document. So for example, a classic example is a list of orders against a shopper. So you might just store the basket of each order against that shopper. Alternatively, and this really depends on the types of data you're dealing with, you might store them all as separate documents that are referenced to the parent document. But that makes querying with MapReduce queries a lot more difficult. So with Nickel, you can now use the power of nest and unnest to basically join those two together and get one document. So you can say, here's my shopper, and I've got 10 different documents all referencing this parent document, but as part of the nesting within Nickel, I can stick all those together and just get one document output as part of my result set. And then you can also query on that. So you could do some quite nice aggregate queries to get things like average order values and say, I want to get all of my shoppers who have an average order value over X. And then those are my sort of top customers that I might target in an email campaign or something, or give them a voucher code. So that is definitely something that we're going to be using. We're already using it sort of on our ready for our next release, around being able to recognise users who've uploaded certain types of video that have been used in final edits. It was very difficult for us to do that before. It was mostly done by fetching the documents and then sticking them together in Python. So by reducing that complexity, it's made our development much quicker.
So you have actually begun the developing stuff against or for Nickel?
Yeah, the sooner you can get the production release out, the GA release, the better for us. We're definitely. We realised that it wasn't worth the effort to try and work around it when we knew that Nickel was going to be coming. So we could have done some stuff to sort of implement the same features, but we didn't want to develop them twice, and we knew that Nickel was the way we wanted to do it.
So I was going to ask, why didn't you just connect it up to Spark or something like that, and why Nickel? Why not run it in some other way?
Why run extra infrastructure if you have to? From our perspective, we're a small startup. We're 6 people in total. We need to run a lean set of infrastructure. So we could have done some Spark or done some Hadoop stuff and played around with that. But I'd rather reduce our complexity and keep it just within an area that we're comfortable with. We don't have the development or operational resource to be trialing new technologies like that. Whereas Nickel is kind of, you can pretty much get, if you've got any SQL experience, and I spent many years as a developer working with MySQL and Oracle. If you've got any SQL experience, you can pretty much get 90% there with Nickel from out of the box. Your counts, your group bys, having clauses, where clauses and joins pretty much work exactly the same way. The only difference is that you're getting JSON objects in your result set rather than database rows. There are some interesting gotchas that originally took me a little while to work out how it was going to work, and that's around how metadata for documents work. So what you would be able to do with a MapReduce query, for example, is you can say either just send me the results of the output, so your MapReduce index key, and then the value that you output, that you emit within there. But then within the SDK, you can say include docs true, and then that will send back the actual documents and all of the metadata. So if you want things like the CAS values, or if you want the document IDs, then you can get that straight away through the MapReduce query SDK. With Nickel, you just have to remember to return the metadata in your select clause. So by default, when you do select star, it will return the document and everything that's in the document, but then you also have to make sure you return the metadata as well to get the CAS value. So if you're doing any looping across your result sets to update them, then you'll need the CAS values to do that safely.
Okay, interesting. So beyond Nickel, are there other parts of Couchbase 4.0 that have caught your eye, or is it really just Nickel for you?
Well, Nickel is certainly the key one. Spatial Views have had a bit of an update as well, performance-wise. So again, we capture, if the users give us permission, we capture geographical data from when the videos are shot. So a couple of our clients are travel companies that get video shoots done all around the world, and it's really useful for them to be able to say, I want everything that was shot in the Southern Hemisphere or shot in Australia or shot in the US. And so using the new Spatial Views, it's a safer way for us to do it than we could do it before, because the performance is much improved. So that's one, and the other one is the multi-dimensional scaling as well. So again, we're not running tens and tens of nodes of Couchbase clusters. It's we run a fairly modest 3-node cluster right now, 2 clusters both in Ireland but different data centers. But what we might do is look at having a dedicated index query node to be able to make sure we've got the performance from Nickel there. So the way that works is, rather than having every node as an equal citizen within the cluster, you can say, this cluster I'm going to give more CPU capacity to, and that's going to be my querying node. And then you might also say, on my indexing node, I want to have an SSD because I want it to be super fast. And then on my data nodes, you're really just more worried about RAM because you want fast access to your data. But you might also have more durable disks to make sure that your data is a bit safer. Whereas with your index and query nodes, you can have them potentially as being less durable.
Great, thanks. You did mention Couchbase Mobile. I think that's one we'll keep for another call or video, whatever. But yeah, it'd be good to talk to you about that another time. I did see that you're actually hiring a developer right now who should have Couchbase experience ideally. Tell us a bit more about that so we can see if anyone watching wants to work for Seenit.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're 6 people in the company at the moment. We've got big plans to grow over the next year or so, but really to be able to take us a bit further within just this year at least, we're looking for a Python full stack developer. So someone who's got good solid Python experience, some good JavaScript, Bootstrap, CSS experience. So we're pretty much on the studio side to the web app side of our. It's all Twitter Bootstrap, jQuery. It's a pretty standard web app type setup. But then we also, as I mentioned, starting to do now a lot more in terms of reporting. So certainly some Couchbase experience. Even if it's not solid production experience, just being able to know, how to write a view, best practices around those sorts of things, and data modeling, then that's really useful. So we're hiring in London. We're based in the heart of Shoreditch, Old Street Roundabout, about 3 doors down from Couchbase's office in London. So you get to go to all the meetups.
Yeah, we should have done this person to person, I suppose. But I'm playing in quite a lot at the moment, and I know you guys are busy with your next release. Okay, well, anything else you want to add? I guess you'd look on Seenit.io for more about Seenit.
Yeah, take a look at Seenit.io. There's some good showcases on there, demo reels on there. So if you're interested in working with us, then just give us a shout.
Great, thanks. And if anyone watching wants to try Couchbase 4.0, the release candidate is out right now at the time of recording. Depending on how quickly I edit it, who knows when the GA will be out. But yeah, so go to couchbase.com, follow the signs for downloading the RC, and have a go and let us know how you get on with it. Forums.couchbase.com is a great place to go. So Dave, thanks very much, and see you around.
Cheers.